Does this mythical state of happiness that we're all trying to achieve, does it exist? And I don't think it does. And I think that's the part of the problem is that we've been oversold a fairy tale that is not real.
All right, welcome to Be All You Can, a space where stories meet self discovery and conversations help us grow into the fullest versions of ourselves. My name is Rishi K. I'm your host, and today's guest is Shaheen Bhatt. Shaheen's using her voice to turn real experiences into strength. I think that's remarkable. And the impact really goes beyond herself. Through her journey with mental health, she's found not only her own voice, but has also created a really safe space for countless others to feel seen, to feel heard, and to feel understood. Hey, wonderful to see you, wonderful to talk to you. How are you?
I'm good. I know. I'm so happy to talk to you after what feels like literally forever.
This podcast is about people who live their lives with purpose.
Mm.
You've turned your most painful experience, which is clinical depression, into a book, a platform, a production company. How did purpose enter your life? Was it like a conscious choice, or did it arrive through the cracks that pain left behind?
So it's been a evolving journey, and for me, I think purpose has been something that I've uncovered, and it's taken some time to come to. And the way that I kind of uncovered it was, honestly, it came quietly, from the side, like from the side. It wasn't something that I was kind of actively looking for. It came as a result of me, in a lot of ways, trying to survive the experiences that I was having in my life, and what it did um, the surviving of it shaped a voice for me that I didn't realize. I didn't realize it was happening while it was happening. But it happened quietly. And so to answer your question, I think definitely it came through the cracks. It is something that just sort of in a way seeped in when I didn't really notice it was happening.
You've written, and I'm going to quote, depression is a monster, a villain, a thief, and even the worst of experiences teach you something. I demanded my lessons and I took them head on. Shine, what does it mean practically to demand something from your suffering? And how do you teach that to someone who's still in the middle of the storm? And we're talking to so many people out there, and that's really the purpose of this conversation, to reach out to others who have been impacted.
I don't think, I mean, to be very honest, that is a sentence that was written in hindsight. It's written retrospectively. It's not something that you can teach somebody who is going through it, because then you're also burdening somebody with the necessity to find meaning in their suffering while it's going on. And while it's going on,
True.
you don't really find meaning in it. So for me, I realized that one of the only ways that I was going to be able to survive the experiences that I had was I had to alchemize it for myself. Not everyone can do that. Not everyone needs to do that. Again, it's a really, really personal thing. Sometimes there is no lesson in it. Sometimes pain is just pain, and that's also okay. That's also valid. It doesn't make it any less valid.
I love the word alchemize.
Yeah.
How
Yeah, it's a
beautiful.
good word.
Listen, for young people, particularly young women, growing up in environments where they feel defined by someone else's success, someone else's legacy, what is your single most important piece of advice for finding and living your own sense of purpose?
Like I said, I think purpose is something that you kind of uncover. It's something that you come to. When you're talking about feeling sort of defined by someone else's success and also even a sense of purpose, I think in society we have a very standard measure for what we consider purpose or what we consider success. It's what we consider it to be a very tangible, palpable thing, something that you can see. That's not always what purpose is. Purpose varies for various people. And I guess the thing that I would say is that when you strip away the audience, when you strip away whoever's watching, does that feeling of purpose or that ambition, does it stay put or does it change? Because who are you doing it for? So I would say if you're looking to understand what your sense of purpose is outside of your family, your friends, your peers, does it go away when no one's watching or does it stay the same? If it stays the same, if tomorrow there was nobody to watch you, nobody to validate it, nobody to say good job, bad job, anything, does it stay the same? Then likely that's your purpose. If not, then you need to kind of go back and think about who you were before the world's measures and limitations got its hands on you.
Hmm. I love that you would call your production company Here Comes the Sun. Also, because it's a George Harrison song, it's so beautiful. It's about light returning after a long, dark winter. If you were to describe where you are right now in your own life, I mean, the book's been written, the platform's built, the production company is thriving, there's a new film on the horizon. What season is it in Shaheen's life, and what does the sun feel like today?
I mean, Here Comes the Sun is the name of my mental health platform. Interestingly, our production company also has sunshine in it. It's called Eternal
Eternal
Sunshine.
sunshine.
Yeah, we're all about sunshine. What season is it? That's a very interesting question. I don't think that I can't really define a season, but you know the interesting thing, the way that I look at seasons in general is every season is shedding something of the previous. You know, every season. So even though I feel like I'm not in one season in particular, I feel like I'm going through different seasons every single day.
So the debut feature I thought was delightfully twisted, Darlings. It was Jasmeet Kaireen's first film. Then
Yeah.
since then you produced Poacher, directed by that brilliant man Rishi Mehta, or he pronounced it as Rishi Mehta, correct? And of course, there's Jigra. I want to know the founding philosophy of Eternal Sunshine. What kind of stories does it exist to tell?
You know, the thing is that it's not like we have a specific type of story that we will tell and a specific type of story that we won't tell. I think what we have realized, however, is that we live in a world that is quite overwhelming and quite stressful. And if we can tell you stories that, you know, ease that sense of tension for you, that's the kind of story that we would like to tell. Of course, we're very passionate about telling stories that have a, you know, like we're talking about purpose, there is purpose underlying everything that we kind of do. There are specific types of stories that we're drawn to. Usually they are subtly message driven, not, you know, not necessarily overtly, but I think we're just at the end of the day just looking to entertain and, you know, to bring a sense of you know, ease with the stories that we want to tell.
I'm very excited by Don't Be Shy. In fact, I was in the audience at the Amazon event where they were releasing their slate for the entire year, and when you guys went on stage and announced it, it follows Shamali Shai Das, who I imagine is a 20-year-old girl who thinks she has everything figured out until her perfectly planned life takes that unpredictable turn. I think there's something deeply resonant about a character named Shai, who's actually carefully constructed her life, and then it just begins to unravel. Was there something personal in that story for you, a version of yourself you recognized in it as the maker?
100%. I mean, I think the thing that we say about Don't Be Shy is that it's a story that you grow up with. Because we all have those stories and those films that we've watched that, you know, kind of have a special place in our lives, and we kind of grow up with that type of tale. So there's something nostalgic and familiar but fresh about the film. And it's a story that we're very, very excited about.
Shine, you've described yourself as someone who chose words and writing, while the rest of your family, your world around you, chose lights and camera. Now, in a family defined by the movies, by Bollywood, how did you protect and nurture a quieter, more interior identity? And did that ever tend to be lonely sometimes?
The thing that I wanted to do was always, it's the same thing. It's storytelling inherently. My family are all storytellers. The way that they tell stories is just slightly more front foot. You see them while they're telling their stories. For me, I've always loved this quote that a writer is someone who wants to tell you a story but doesn't want to make eye contact with you while doing it. So that's me in a nutshell. It's just the goal is the same. The desire is the same. I just want to do it in a slightly different way. So the loneliness, I think, came when I was younger, and I was just, I guess, reckoning with the fact that it was just something I was not doing in the exact same way. But it's who I am. Inherently, it's who I am. I am a writer, you know, at heart and at soul. So, yeah.
Shine, it's not easy to hand over your most private pain to the public, to go public with it. And just before going to print for your book, you said you were conflicted, but then you obviously told yourself that you need to own your own truth. Can you just take us into that moment? I know it's been a few years, but what does it actually feel like to decide to hand over your most private pain to the public?
I forget honestly that I've done it until people come up to me sometimes and they're like, "Oh, we read your book." I mean, I do remember. I do remember having a moment of like, do I really want to do this? But at the same time, while I was writing the book throughout the entire process, I don't really think I thought about what it meant to do it. So, I mean, ultimately, I think it's one of the greatest gifts I've given myself doing that because, like you talked about owning your story. It's not that I was hiding the fact that I was, going through what I was going through. I just wasn't necessarily talking about it very openly all the time. And in a way, this just completely the veil lifted. There was nothing to pretend about anymore. Now, when I walk into a room and somebody says, "Hey, how are you doing?" I can go, not great, man. Bad day today. Like today's a bad weather day. I can actually say that, and I don't have to. I don't have the pressure of having to pretend I'm feeling anything other than what I'm feeling, and people get that. And since doing it, honestly, a lot of the weight of what I was dealing with actually completely dissipated.
Why was it so important for you to draw that line clearly, especially in a culture like ours that really sometimes celebrates the tortured artist?
I think the tortured artist trope is something that has become kind of a staple, across, globally. It's something that um, everybody kind of assumes that if you're somebody who's creative, the route to being creative is to be, in pain in some way. And I think that the problem with that is you're giving depression a purpose that it hasn't earned.
Hmm.
There is, I will always say there is value in pain if you choose to look for it. But like you said, pain and depression, very, very, very different things. We all go through pain. Unequivocally, if you are a human being, part of being human is being in pain at some point in your life. Being depressed is an entirely different thing. That is something that it robs you of every sort of resource that you have.
I'm just curious to know the scanned copies of your actual diary entries. Anybody who reads that book, I've had people describing them as difficult, gut wrenching, essential, interesting. How did you decide to include those raw, unfiltered entries rather than do a reconstruction, which is what normally authors do, a so-called polished reconstruction of that particular time?
Because like you said, a reconstruction is polished. It's a smoothed out version of, whatever it is that I was experiencing. And it was important for me to show you because while I was in the moment experiencing what I was experiencing, I was not on the other side understanding that it would go away. I was not understanding that it would get better. I was living it. And in my head, that was how life was going to be. It's important to see the way someone's mind works when they don't know that they're going to get to the other side of something. So, it's as close as I could take readers to what was going on for me in my mind at the time. And I think it's a nice insight into how depression sort of, molds your thoughts.
Well, those of you who've read the book would know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't, at the core of a book is a conversation where Shaheen asks her dad, the great Bhatt Saab, "Why don't I know how to be happy?" And Bhatt Saab responds, "Why do you want to be happy?" And that exchange seems to open up something much larger than depression. What is the philosophical question you were really trying to answer in writing the book, Shaheen?
Does this mythical state of happiness that we're all trying to achieve, does it exist? And I don't think it does. And I think that's the part of the problem is that we've been oversold a fairy tale that is not real. It's impossible to, try and be happy all the time. So for me, I think the question was, is this mythical thing, is it real? And no, I don't think it is. And is it so bad? Is it actually so bad that that's not real? Because the transience of life is also the most, while it's a scary thing, it's also one of the most comforting things.
Yeah,
Good feelings don't last, sure, but that also means bad feelings don't
bad feelings
last.
don't
That's a
last.
great thing.
You've spoken about the hardest part of battling depression was telling the people you love and the people who love you what you were actually going through. And, you were open about that. That is vulnerability to me.
Mm.
My question is, what does vulnerability cost us in relationships? And most importantly, what does vulnerability ultimately give back to us if we allow ourselves to be vulnerable?
Vulnerability costs us a performance. So in my mind, it doesn't cost you anything that you really want to hold on to anyway. It costs you the performative version of yourself. Every human relationship is based on the connection that comes from vulnerability. Every single one. And as human beings, that's what we're here for. It is the ultimate source of comfort to us in the long run. We tend to see it for some reason as something that's really, really dangerous. And something that's scary and something that's painful. But there is no greater gift than you can kind of give yourself. Yeah.
You were just 12 when you first experienced depression, but you didn't know what it was, like lots of us don't. We just think we are weird. And you probably thought that too, that you were weird and different from everybody else because you couldn't be happy the way everyone else seemed to be happy, seemed to be happy. Looking back at that 12-year-old girl, what would you want to tell 12-year-old Shaheen today?
Mm, just that you're comparing yourself to what everybody seems to be. You're
Mm.
still comparing yourself to the performance. So, I think just remember that just for everything you see of somebody is not exactly who they are, and everybody just like you is figuring it out, and you will too.
When strangers come up to you and say, Shaheen, your story helped me, what does that do to you emotionally? Does it feel affirming, a little heavy, humbling, or I don't know, all of those things at once?
It affirms everything that I sort of believe in, which is that we have to talk about how we're feeling, and the one of the fundamental problems that we have in society today is that everyone is pretty much feeling the same thing, but no one's talking about it. So everyone thinks they're alone. And the more you talk about something, the more you realize everyone is going through some version of the same thing, and you feel less alone, and you feel less like it's an aberration, and you feel less weird, and you feel less abnormal, and you just feel like just one more person who is trying to figure out this strange beautiful thing called life. So
So is that what Indian families are getting wrong about mental health conversations at home? They're just not talking, especially when the person suffering appears functional from the outside. Oh, she looks okay. He looks okay.
I think the fundamental thing that we need to change is our understanding of how depression functions. A lot of people can deal with incredibly bad days, but still move around and get things done. And you will not, nobody knew what I was going through until I talked about it. As people dealing with mental health issues, we become very, very good at masking our emotions. So you just assume that just because nobody's talking about it, everyone is dealing with it just fine. That's not the case.
At Godrej, we often speak about the importance of having a purpose or a quote unquote North Star. What has been your anchor shine through the highs and lows?
I wouldn't use the word anchor. I like the word North Star very much because I think an anchor is something that kind of roots you and keeps you in place. North Star is something that gives you direction. So I like the idea of it being a North Star. And for me, that's always been writing. It's been my compass through trying to, figure out how I'm feeling, what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling that way.
You're such a strong voice for mental health. One is your own condition and realization. But what really inspired you to begin that journey, saying that I want to work in mental health?
Honestly, it wasn't a thought that I consciously made, or a decision that I consciously made, or a thought that I had specifically. It just happened. It came from an Instagram post on a day where I was not feeling my best and looking for something to post, and I was like, everything I was thinking about posting just seemed very disingenuous in comparison to how I was feeling. So I was like, "Chal, let's see what happens. I'll say how I'm actually feeling," and I did. If just talking about this raises awareness, and then writing a book is going to do even more, then talking about it on a podcast, wherever I had the opportunity to talk about it, I did it. So it wasn't a conscious decision. It's something that just kind of came to me, and as a result of that, I've just been very blessed to be able to, I guess, somehow turn one of the worst things in my life into something that actually has, to me, incredible value.
I look at Jigra, the film, and I'm thinking, like it or not, you're a women led team. I
Mm.
mean, I don't know if gender matters at all in certain aspects of filmmaking, but sometimes at the other end of the spectrum, you wonder that as a women led team, does that shape the creative process? What you guys are?
I mean, it's so interesting. The fact that there were a woman-led team also, just again, it's something that just happened. It was not a conscious thing. It's not like we kind of decided to do it. It was. As to does it impact the creative process? I mean, I think obviously the more diverse your point of view is, the more, the more effective your storytelling is going to be. Yeah, we're getting a more diverse, varied opinion now because there's a lot more women in there.
The stigma around mental health, uh, we see it improving, but you still think there's miles to go? Are we making real world progress? You still think that stigma exists in a large measure today?
I think the stigma exists tremendously. I think it's different in that maybe we're not quite as silent as we were about it
Hmm.
even 5 years ago. But the stigma has, again, it's changed. It's metamorphosed into something completely different now. Now, the way that people talk about mental health and depression is everyone has this pressure to, yeah, sure, I have mental health problems, but you should already have figured out how that you've survived it, or summarize it neatly, or it already needs to kind of fit into an arc. We're imposing a narrative onto everybody who is talking about their mental health, and we're expecting them to be at the end of that narrative, which is its own kind of trap, because that means you don't see anyone who's in the middle of it, dealing with it, struggling with it. I think it's a different kind of stigma now, where again it is a version of romanticizing it as well.
My last question to you: what would you say to someone struggling to open up about depression or anxiety?
You don't owe everyone your story or what you're feeling, but you owe yourself one person with whom you can be completely transparent and completely honest. You don't have to tell everybody. Find one person, choose one person, and find that one person to tell and be completely yourself with. Um, Whether that person is a friend, a family member, a professional, or anyone, it makes all the difference. You don't realize the kind of difference that it makes.
You once said, "Why not me?"
Yeah.
What does that mindset mean to you today?
I think it's something that I hold on to. It's the why not me came from, there was an essayist, I think his name was Richard Mitchell, if I'm not mistaken, who had written about, when we all ask ourselves the pressing question, why me, why me, why me? But there's another side to that, which is why not me? And we all focus so much on why is this happening to me, that we don't pause to think that basically the notion is that pain is inevitable and suffering is optional. So, you can torture yourself and ask yourself the question, why is this happening to me? Or you can go, okay, why not me? This is the this is the thing that I have been given, that I have to kind of find a way to deal with. And what can I make of it? Is there something that I can make of it? And that's at least what I've tried to do to the best of my ability.
Well, if there's one thing that I've taken away from this wonderful conversation with Shaheen Bhatt, it's this: that you don't have to have it all figured out to keep going.
Yeah,
And we
keep on.
must soldier on. Thank you everybody for tuning into our podcast. Till next time, stay inspired.
Thanks for listening to Be All You Can, a podcast by Godrej Enterprises Group, exploring the passion, purpose, and dreams of pioneers. Stay tuned for more stories that inspire action and impact.